Welcome to SADOC with Sandra. SADOC is Hebrew for just and righteous. Our mission here is to strengthen and to develop our community through education, elevation, and empowerment. This is season 1, episode 6, where we are here with Sherry Washington with SRW Consulting at her place of ministry where she tutors students at JBAS Ministries. Sherry is also the education chair for the NAACP Pennsylvania State Conference. Hi, Sherry.
Hey, twin. Thanks for having me.
Sherry, thank you for joining me today. So first, let's just talk. Tell people about your background.
Um, Sherry Washington, born and raised in York, Pennsylvania. Graduated from York Catholic. I am a CA kid through and through. That's where I got my foundation and love for my people and our history and teaching. Um, Went to college at Towson University on a track scholarship. Started teaching in Baltimore City. Then I ran back home to teach in York because it was better and the pay was more, but it was home. Um, After teaching for York City for a while, I did a stint at York Country Day as the first black teacher there, and then came back to run Christmas Attic Truthville Charter School as their first principal in the CAL. From there, I served as a consultant for the Department of Education, helping urban schools figure out why was our data so low, what is it we need to do.
How long were you doing that?
Only for a year, but we had intensive training.
Right.
And I was first sent to Harrisburg, but then they switched me to Stilton High Spire. And from working at Stilton High Spire, it's a unique place. I loved it and developed a bond with the people. So when they got their new superintendent, they had asked me to come back as the assistant superintendent. So I served there for 7 years, did a year at Harrisburg, came back to York, and then retired. I did teach.
Retired.
Yeah, I retired.
I think you're younger than I am, so that's
But
good
I'm
to
still
be
working.
retired.
I'm
Right,
still
right, right.
working.
As a consultant, yes.
Yeah, and teaching adjunct at
Right.
HAC and
Okay.
University of Maryland College Park. But I did do assistant principalship with York City and loved it. But when I came back the last time with the charter school, it wasn't a good fit.
That's what I was going to say, because you also worked as an administrator for a charter school.
For Thaxton.
Okay.
It wasn't a good fit. So after everything that was going on there, I decided to retire.
Okay. All right. So a lot of experience working in education from a teacher, principal to another administrator, right?
Assistant superintendent,
Yeah,
director of
right.
curriculum instruction, Title One.
Mhm.
When I was a teacher, I had to first started my tutoring business. It was called the Learning Connection Center. When I became a principal, I had to stop. After I retired, we reopened and renamed it Scholar Prep and Tutoring.
Okay.
And so, in addition to teaching at HAC, Gettysburg, York, Lancaster, Harrisburg, and Lebanon, um, I also teach a college prep class for University of Maryland College Park. But we have my own business. I have my kids who work with me and other consultants where it's 3 components. It's education advocacy, because a lot of times our parents are going into these meetings and educators aren't saying the right things.
Right. Or they may not understand what they're saying.
Right. Or the educators know what they're not saying.
Right.
Then we also we write curriculum
Right.
and workbooks for nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
We do work with 3 nonprofits. We really limit that. We don't share that information. Or we do strategic plans, but we only focus on nonprofits that are really about helping the youth
Right.
or the community, mothers and children. And then we have the college navigation piece, which is the biggest piece, where we have a contract with York City. We're getting ready to get another contract in Baltimore City, where we're working with high school students and helping them and their families navigate that process, because our
Right.
counselors typically have about 300 to 400 students per caseload. And, there's a lot of things that aren't explained to us or told to us. And so we actually hold the hands and we walk them through it, and we do everything from SAT prep to editing your essays to creating an academic resume to getting ready for your interview for your college, monitoring their emails, teaching them how to monitor
Right.
the emails, communicating with the parents. Because what we learned over the past 5 years is when you do that succinctly,
Mm-hmm.
um, the out of pocket expense is relatively low.
Right.
And kids have options to say, hey, I got 3 full rides here. Where do I really want to go?
And to college. So the out-of-pocket expenses to college
Right.
when you do that right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so for those students who don't attend York, any student who attends York City school districts or lives in the city, whether you go to Logos or the York Academy, they can take advantage of that program for free. And we meet every Wednesday where the school students get out half a day.
Right.
We meet here at JBAS from 12 to 3.
Okay.
And if you're a student who's not in those districts, we have organizations like the York Black Authors Association
Mm-hmm.
who donates money for us to
Right.
help offset the cost for other kids in different districts.
Okay.
We also work with students not just in Pennsylvania, but North Carolina, South Carolina, DMV area. It's just our passion.
So, with the recent Supreme Court decision, I think it was last year,
Yeah.
about this time, that basically said that race could not be used as a factor in admitting students. However, you sort of use how your race mold and shaped who you are or where you want to be. Do you help with that? Help students to fill out those applications to fit in that narrow description? Have you run across that?
That situation
Mm-hmm.
is disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
When that ruling came down, we knew it was going to have repercussions.
Right.
But we have had students last year, one particular student who was the valedictorian for York Academy. Her GPA was like a 4.3, 4.45. She went off to college with 24 college credits
Right.
through IB exams, and that's the most rigorous
So definitely qualified.
course you could take.
Right.
Right. But she did not get into Duke,
Mm.
UNC, or her other top 4 schools prior to that ruling. If she would have applied the year before, where my other students have, because we've been doing this for 5 years, she would have gotten in.
So
That
after that ruling, then
she
she
did
was
not get in
precluded. She was prevented from. Okay. Okay.
because they no longer had to have a quota,
Right. Right.
and so she was not in. She did
And
not
she
get in.
qualified, it sounds like, through all of
Oh,
those
she definitely.
experiences.
SAT score was off
Yes.
the chain. She got
Mm-hmm.
recognized by College Board as being one of the top African American females to have a high score. She was in a pre-med honor society. She was in every honor society out there.
So she had all those qualifications, was also African American, and because they didn't have to really consider African Americans, she wasn't considered.
Right. And when we
Right.
question, well, what happened? Because we want to learn.
Right.
Their response was, oh, she didn't have a social media presence.
What? What does that have to do with college? A social media
It's
presence.
the new, so there's so many nuances that prevent our kids from getting in, right?
Right.
So certain high profile schools
Mm-hmm.
want you to have a positive social media presence
Okay.
so you can be the ambassador for the school.
Mm.
So everyone back in your hometown can say, oh, she goes there. We want to go there too.
Right.
But if
Okay.
you don't have a presence
Mm-hmm.
and they have this other candidate who has the same qualities and their mother or whomever is bragging about them on the internet and
Right.
they have a presence,
Mm-hmm.
they're getting it.
Okay. Okay.
So it's just like with the NIL deals for the athletes. They recruit students based on academics and how can you help their school shine.
So now we try to break it down here for people who, may not understand. So the NIL deal.
It's a national it's a way for athletes to make money off their name
Okay.
and their brand.
And that's something new. I mean,
It
I don't
is.
know about it per se. I've seen articles, recent stories about it that, because I knew before athletes, especially high school athletes or whatever, they were not able to monetize their skill, but everybody else could make money off of them. The school, the coaches, everybody else. But now it allows them to make some.
Yes, we have
Okay.
we have a student
Hmm.
who's maybe pulling in about 20 to 40,000 a month.
And that's in high school.
He's in college.
Oh, college. So is that high school or college
You
level
can
then?
get NIL now.
Okay.
Brands in high school also. even though the PIAA Pennsylvania Athletic Association is trying, there's a bill in the Senate trying to block that now. Even though it's allowed currently,
Right.
there is a bill trying to block it. It didn't go anywhere, so now they have to restart over. But
And do you know who is the proponent of that bill? Is that a Republican? Okay, so this is also why I bring information out because your vote is important. So again, the first time young people from high school to college are able to sustain themselves by being able to market themselves. They're trying to block that in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
So the Pennsylvania Senate, the Pennsylvania House is controlled by Democrats. The Pennsylvania Senate is controlled by Republicans. So again, you're probably going to have about a week or less to vote when this first drops. But this is why your vote is so important. You need to get out and vote. It needs to be important to you.
It has to be important.
Yes.
It definitely has to be.
Yeah. And one of the other big issues, Sherry, that I wanted to talk to you about because you are one of the top gurus I know on education. Are you still working with the Pennsylvania Department of Education?
Yes. Not them. I'm actually working with the Pennsylvania Education and Economic Commission
Okay.
board that works with the legislators and the National Commission of Education and Economics, the national database research company.
Okay.
So they pulled a group of us together to start looking at how to reframe curriculum from pre-K to the end of college or training.
Right.
And so we're looking at a lot of data and what's working globally. And just thankful and grateful to have a seat at the table.
Right. Absolutely.
To make sure our voice is heard.
That's what we need to do. We need to be at those tables, make our own as well, but be at the tables where they have a table. One of the key to Pennsylvania education or inequity in education has always been around funding and getting money to our schools that do not have a great tax base.
Yeah.
So, and I know you've been working on that for at least the last year or two, or been involved in the education funding system. And you just mentioned that was a commission as well that's studying some best practices. So, what funding challenges have you found, or what are we doing about it?
Well, because of the work that you had put in, previously working with the organization, the lawsuit was filed 11 years ago. And
And this is the education funding lawsuit where advocacy groups sued the state because it was violating the Constitution, Pennsylvania's Constitution, by not providing a quality and affordable public education, right?
for children in
general.
urban and rural schools. And so the case went on for about 10 years. And we finally won the case
2022?
2022,
2023, yeah.
23. And then we had to fight for what I call reparations.
Right.
And they hate it when I keep using that word, and I don't care.
Right, that's what it is.
Reparations.
Giving you what they didn't give you before when they should have given it to you in the first place. That's
Like, please stop
exactly
using that word.
that is.
No, it's reparations. Run us our money,
Yeah.
please. And so, those conversations, initial conversations, were interesting.
Right.
We demanded an audience with PDE and the governor's representatives, and the Pennsylvania PDE Department of Education representative was acting clueless. We gave them concrete examples of how they could go about getting this money. The Public Interest Education Law Center,
Yes.
phenomenal. Hired an expert who went even deeper, and he came up with what's called the 7-year adequacy funding gap plan, where there was a bill where they were supposed to pass that for the next 7 years, the districts who were underfunded, rural and urban, would have received the money that was owed to us, plus additional monies to not only repair what wasn't given, but also help the community, because you have to understand this was an 11-year situation. So people have graduated. They're in the communities. They're unemployed. Their skill level's low. Not having those resources, not just didn't impact the school district. It impacted our communities.
Right,
And so
absolutely.
our call was, don't just put money in the schools, put it in the community also. So that included the whole work and trade field, cyber certifications, mental health counseling, um, community social work resources. So this 7-year adequacy gap was supposed to be passed. Well, then popped up the vouchers
Right.
and the history of the vouchers. So you got the NAACP and you got Good Thurgood Marshall. And I'm giving names because recently I was teaching and I was throwing out names at Hack.
Right.
And these kids looked at me like they didn't know who was who.
Well, they're not getting history lessons.
I kept
And
clutching the pearls.
especially Black history, which is United States history.
Our history.
Exactly.
So Thurgood Marshall was the attorney for the NAACP, National, who fought to end segregation in schools.
Board of Education.
Thank you. Had our anniversary last year.
Right.
Um, when that happened in Virginia, the good governor of Virginia at the time did not like that. So he shut down the whole public school system in Virginia and said, we're not integrating. But then he created vouchers. And these vouchers back then were earmarked for the private schools so that his white friends and colleagues could send their students there so they would not have to integrate with the Black and brown children. Eventually that was stopped, but vouchers remained. And so the true history of vouchers isn't about having options. It was truly about segregation.
Right. The options aren't for Black and brown people normally because even with a voucher, they can reject you.
They can.
Yeah, it's no guarantee you're getting in even if you get a voucher.
And so in Pennsylvania, we currently have the ETIC, and I'm probably getting the other acronym.
OSTC. I heard Representative Carol Hill Evans spoke about that a couple of days ago, that the businesses already have quote unquote vouchers because they choose where their tax dollars go.
And they get a tax cut.
Yes.
And so the EITC is for the larger companies, and the other one is for the smaller companies.
Okay.
And you can say, if I owe taxes, send that here.
Right.
So I don't have to pay, right? So that money goes to the private schools. You have to sign up for it, all right? Or the nonprofits. You have to sign up for it, right? So let's say a place like York Catholic High School or Logos get the scholarship money. They get to choose who they give the scholarship to. Some places like Crispus Attucks does have an application that you can fill out for the EITC money. And then if the application is approved, you get to have it go to the school of your choice. But other school districts who are direct recipients, they pick and choose who gets the money. Now, let's go back to vouchers. It's supposed to be equitable, right? And then everyone's supposed to be able to get it. Your private schools do not have to accept you as a student.
Right.
There are private schools who currently have rules and regulations. You're not allowed to have dreadlocks. Your cornrows can't be too long or too thick. And so in those situations, you wouldn't be accepted to that school. So that scholarship you were hoping for to go to that private school, you can't get access to because they don't have to accept you. You have charter schools, public charter schools. And I would say the name, but I'm going to be politically correct tonight.
You don't have to be on here, but for your other positions, you might need to be. So that I'll let you play it safe.
Okay. So you have a public charter school that does not accept students who have an IEP, an individual education plan, special education IEP, students who have emotional support. They won't accept those kids. And no one's making them.
So I wanted to quickly jump in reference to, you talked about the discrimination over hair, because that is the other issue of, Pennsylvania has the Crown Act to stop and prevent businesses, organizations, people from being able to discriminate over your natural hair or how Black people, brown people, ethnic people wear their hair. But I do know that every York County Republican voted against that at the state. So that is my concern with, even people like, say, Jasmine Rivera, who's a registered Republican, saying that she's going to do something different. You're not going to do something different when you have to join that Republican caucus. You got to walk, in line with their policy, especially as a freshman legislator.
Right.
So I just wanted to raise that issue because
Voting.
yeah, voting,
Right.
and we're already struggling
Enough.
with being recognized for our individual selves and how we simply want to wear our own hair.
Right.
And then, we have people who are voting against us having that type of freedom.
Right. And so the Crown Act is passed in New York City,
Yeah,
but
but not the
not York
states.
County and not the
Not the
state.
state. So that's what I'm
And
speaking
so,
of.
as
Yeah.
the state,
Right.
that's where there's that loophole where these private schools
Right.
don't have to adhere to it. So you talk about those vouchers supposed to be equitable and whatnot.
Right.
They're not. It's another way to create separate and still not equal.
Exactly. Or conformity. So you're going to have to give up a part of your identity, your heritage, or whatever you feel makes you as a unique individual, and you're going to have to look like us,
Right.
act like us, to be accepted by us.
Right. And so the vouchers that was on the bill was different from the EITC and the other one.
Right.
This voucher was directly going to take the money that was supposed to be earmarked for the reparations,
Right.
and give it to folks schools. For public schools.
Yes.
When you pay your taxes,
right,
and your money goes towards the schools,
right,
they want to take your money to give to a resident for their school to go get, for them to go get private
education,
private education,
right,
on your dime,
right,
on your tax money.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know, Sherry, the breakdown of the amount of money that's allocated to each student?
It varies for each district.
Okay.
So the voucher was worth $10,000.
All right.
Each district is different.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a regular ed student, it might be between $10,000 and $12,000. If it's a student who has an IEP or special education, that could be anywhere between $15,000 to $21,000, depending on the district and what their budget situation is.
So if the district has something budgeted for, say, that particular student, if they were given a voucher, would all that money follow that student, or would any money stay with the public school?
It's just like with charter schools. When a student goes to a charter school, a public charter school, that money follows the student. So that's the same thing with the voucher would do. That money, that $10,000 would come off of the budget plan for the public school and go with the student. So what does that mean? What's the big picture, right? So here we are in Pennsylvania with a teacher deficit. Urban schools, we're looking for teachers. We're trying to find teachers. People talk about, oh, the scores are low. First of all, let's go get the real scores, okay?
Where can they find them?
You can find the real scores at futurereadypa.org. futurereadypa.org. You can look up any data that's public data, and it will show you what the scores are. To get a school score, you're not just looking at the PSSA data. You have to also look at what we call the Pennsylvania growth data, PVAS. So here's the thing, right? Let's say you weigh 240 pounds and you get on a plan and you're working out and your goal is in 1 year to be down to 190. It takes time. You can't jump from 200 to 190 unless you go get one of those surgeries, right?
Right.
Or you're getting a shot.
Right.
Let's just keep it above.
Yeah, exercise takes time.
Okay, and eating right and all of that.
That's right.
That's the same thing for learning.
Absolutely.
It's a growth plan.
Right.
So if a school district had a low test score on the PSSA at 21%, it's not going to be at 54% the next year. You have to have growth. And if it does jump from 21 to 54 in 1 year, something's wrong. That's not adequate.
So they're probably
cheating,
right? Not giving right numbers.
Mm-hmm. But the data comes directly from the test.
Right.
The tests are secure, and there's measures in place to make sure no one can cheat anymore. It was happening about 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
So that's why you don't just look at the PSSA data or the Keystone data. You look at the growth data.
Right.
The growth has a scientific mathematical formula that shows you the trend. And it shows you if this was where they are now, this is where they are here, how much did they grow?
Right.
And so there was a person who said Devers was at 0%. If you look at Devers' math growth, it's 100%.
Wow, 100% of growth.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, you talked about the money, the reparations. That those quote unquote reparations just came July 2024.
Yeah.
They just put that $1 billion
But
in
here's the
Pennsylvania
thing.
education.
Because of our fight with the, and I know I'm jumping, with the
No, that's
vouchers and us saying, no, we don't want vouchers, and,
right.
partnered with organizations like Teachers Plus, PSEA,
Right.
Pennsylvania School Association, because teachers need jobs to make the economy go round,
Right.
and you get vouchers, teachers aren't going to have jobs, and there's no public education. And while I'm on that, so because we fought, they did not pass the 7-year adequacy gap budget. They gave us that money for 1 year. So this is why voting is important.
Yes. And they being, again, because Republicans voted
Yes.
against that budget. And for York County, Pennsylvania, all of those Republicans for York County, Pennsylvania voted against that budget.
Okay. And I'm gonna share this, right?
Right.
Because I have to be so-called what did they say?
Nonpartisan.
Yeah, that
But you can
person.
start. You can talk about
I'm
issues.
sharing today. I'm not
You
a
can talk-
representative.
you
So
can
here's
talk
the
about
thing.
issues.
Here's the thing. The person who stood up to help us talk to Governor Shapiro, because at first he was wishy-washy, you know, was Carol Hill Evans
Of the 95th
of the
district.
95th District. NAACP, PSEA, AFT, Teachers Plus, Pennsylvania School Superintendents Association. Everybody called upon her. She got called into a meeting. And when Governor Shapiro asked her why he should consider not supporting that, she broke it down using the information we gave her. She was our voice. Saying no to that voucher was the right thing to do because it would have put teachers out of their jobs.
Right.
We don't have teachers to teach our kids. Our scores can't go up if you have a bunch of substitutes who don't have the background subbing in the classroom all day and just watching movies.
Right.
You need teachers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You need
qualified
teachers.
Right.
We need to fight to improve teachers' salaries.
Right.
We need to include the total resources to help the teachers not to focus on teaching and not have to deal with the discipline issues or the alternative education issues. And so saying vouchers just would have dismantled the public school system, which would have then had a bigger impact on urban and rural schools. So here we won this lawsuit. We're asking for reparations, and they came out with vouchers to just undergird what they just announced
Right.
and confirmed.
Right.
Yeah,
That
we
was
didn't give you
unconstitutional.
we
Right.
violated your constitution.
Right.
We kept your money.
Right. Yeah.
But we're still going to do vouchers and still keep your money
Right.
and let y'all go further behind. No, we can't do that. You need to vote.
Absolutely.
Even if you don't like York City, it's not about York City. It's about public education.
Yeah.
Central York is public education.
Yes.
Your suburban is public education.
Yes.
Dallastown is public education.
And then where you may be, you may not be in York County, Pennsylvania, but this applies to you as well. It's Pennsylvania education. So everything she's talking about affects you throughout Pennsylvania.
And here's the other thing, right?
Yeah.
So there were some Democrats that were for this. And I get that.
Vouchers.
For the vouchers.
Okay.
But those Democrats were mainly from Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, I get that.
Oh, they have a bigger system.
You have a bigger system, but the issue in Philadelphia are the buildings are dilapidated. And so right now we are having these serious conversations with Pennsylvania Department of Education and the governor to put money into Philadelphia school infrastructure.
Right.
If we put money into having those buildings look right so that teachers feel good going in and the teachers can teach,
Right.
then we don't need the vouchers to go out here and create private schools. Because contrary to popular belief, some of these folks who wanted this had the ideal that, we're going to start our own private charter school.
Right.
And we're going to take that money and open up our schools. You cannot educate and run a school on $10,000 a child. It costs more than that.
Right.
Because you have to pay for teachers, you have to pay for their salary, you have to pay for their everything. It's just,
In a building, even still, whether you rent or whether you buy. And that building situation, that's another thing that Carol Hill Evans stated, because she said, we don't want you to take our public dollars to buy private real estate, and then you have that real estate in your name, then shut down. And now you have this prime real estate that you bought with public dollars, and there's nothing that the state can do about it.
yep,
So you have an asset that you bought with public funds, and now you're no longer really operating as a school.
yep.
So that's the other thing of why she said that she was against those vouchers. Not per se charter schools, I think she was saying, but using public funds to buy private property.
And to fund private schools. And so here's the last piece, right? Your charter schools and your public schools on that site, futurereadypa.org, all the data is. There's no site that
For
tells
charter
us what the
schools.
private, no, charter schools are on there,
Okay.
but not private schools.
Okay.
So all these people who say, oh, private schools are better, where's the data?
Right.
Ask them for their data. Oh, we can't because they're private. So we can't do the right to know.
Right.
Because some of these private schools, if you go into their school sites, you don't even know who's on the board. It's hidden information. So what are their reading
So
scores?
transparency as well.
What are their math scores?
Right.
What is their graduation rate? How many people can really read when they're graduating? Let's put the data on the table.
And then you can do better if you cherry pick.
Yeah.
So if you don't have to have someone with IEP or whatever, or if you immediately expel someone who has any type of educational challenges instead of meeting those challenges, then yeah, you might even have better scores.
You know, I am a private, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite, right? I graduated from your Catholic, a private school.
Right.
Half of those people couldn't read,
Mm.
and everybody didn't go to college, not because
Right.
they didn't have the money,
Right.
but because it wasn't a good fit, right?
Okay. All right.
So where's the data about the private schools? Where's their so-called success? You can't, if we're going to look at data and call out districts before you say vouchers so people can have options, don't believe that just because it's a private school and you're wearing a uniform that the option is better.
Well-
I encourage people to go talk to some of these students who went to some of these private schools that y'all think are so good.
Right.
And ask them not just about academics. Yeah, I'll say this. Your Country Day's academics is
But
stellar.
culture.
But the culture and the climate.
Right,
How is
exactly.
their child's mental health?
Right.
How are they integrating in the world with their job after attending there? Now, I've been at Your Country Day. I've tutored students from Logos, Your Catholic, Bible Baptist, all your other little private schools. The only one that I'm going to sit here and give a green star is Your Country Day. There's some cultural things that need to improve,
Right.
right? But as far as the setting and the learning, the education, the options of taking college credits, it's expensive, but they do give scholarships.
Right.
It's a good program.
Right. Yeah.
But the rest of them, go talk to people who went there.
And that's the thing, public or private, there's pros and cons with everything. So, and you can be in a private school and it still depends on how you apply yourself. You can be in a public school and it depends on how you apply yourself.
And that's the piece I want to talk about there.
Yes.
So one of at the recent
The IEPs.
town hall, first of all, there's no IEP monies. Let's clarify that.
Okay.
Let's talk about.
But I guess, when you say, so my child had an IEP when they attended one school and then they improved at another school.
Okay.
So, I mean, what are some of the factors based on your experiences with how you can make an improvement when your child has an IEP?
So there's this misnomer out there that IEPs are a bad thing. They're not.
Right.
If your child has a learning challenge or learns differently and needs that IEP, there's nothing wrong with having that IEP. Yes, there's a problem when districts are over-identifying, but the state has been monitoring that, and that over-identification of students with IEPs is being monitored and has been reduced significantly in all the school districts in your county. There's a public site for that also. If you go into futuresready.org and you go down to the bottom, it'll say special education data. Click on that link. It'll take you directly to the special education website. And that's for anybody in Pennsylvania.
The IEP, Individual Education Plan,
Mm-hmm.
Individualized Education Plan.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that
So if a
is,
child has
yeah.
dyslexia, they might need an IEP
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that they're being taught the way they need to be taught to learn. If a child is significantly behind and can't read, they will need an IEP to ensure that they're receiving intensive reading instruction.
And if they have a behavioral issue,
They
certain confrontations they can have.
Right. Children may have an IEP for a behavior issue because they saw a relative get murdered. They were in an abusive situation. They may be on the spectrum. That doesn't make them a bad child.
Right.
And the thing about an IEP are for students who are significantly behind academically. But you can also have a 504 plan. If your child is ADHD, a health impairment, a 504 plan guarantees that they're going to have the rights they need. If they suffer from depression or anxiety, but they're still on track, it makes sure that if that child is having an episode in that 504 plan, it says, hey, they can have extended time on task because you can't control that invisible disease.
Right.
You know what I mean? These things are significant because when they matriculate to college, it follows them. Not only that, I'm going to drop a real jewel right here because it's hidden.
Okay.
When you have an IEP or a 504 plan and you want to go to college, you can then connect with OVR, the Office of Vocational
And they'll
Rehabilitation.
pay for it.
Up to $4,000 in grant money.
Yeah.
But people are like, oh, it's so bad. No, it's not.
Right.
And if you have an IEP in the district or the school or the teacher's not following it, that's your legal document
Absolutely.
to hold them accountable.
Yep, I do that, again, where
Hold them
people want to
accountable.
defend against action from the school and look, because that's the contract. So you look at this IEP and they say school must do this, that. Schools say, oh, I want to discipline, I want to suspend, I want to expel. It's like, wait a minute, did you do this, that? You didn't?
You can't expel.
Oh, wait a minute. You're at fault.
Yeah.
So I want to, again, because who knows where all the listeners may be. So this is something throughout Pennsylvania at the bare minimum, that if your student has an IEP or 504 plan, an IEP or 504 plan,
or a gifted IEP, a GIEP.
Okay.
All that is covered.
Yes.
However, if you choose to get your little voucher and go to a private school, they don't have to do that.
Yeah.
They give you a learning plan, but you got to really fight to hold them accountable because they're not receiving federal dollars.
Right.
So they're going to fight you and say, I don't have to.
But I want to also just make sure that, as she said, that if you want to go to school further, you can go connect to OVR, occupation vocational rehab, and they may fund some of your advanced schooling after high school.
You have to go through the test and qualify. But if you have documentation, a legit 504 plan IEP, GIEP coming out of a public school district, it typically transfers over. They do that your senior year to do that transition. I want to talk about gifted IEPs real quick.
Okay. Yeah,
and so at that debate, it was York City was highlighted, right?
Yes, they were.
I believe in equity.
Right.
York City's not perfect.
Okay.
But they're showing growth and progress. They have social workers, health workers. They have a whole team to address the whole body.
Okay.
It's improving, right? But let's highlight there's still discipline issues at a lot of these suburban schools. Part of my company, we get called in to serve as an advocate.
Right.
Again, I'm not going to call schools out, but you had a school who saw a little black boy picture on one of the police sites saying we think he stole from Walmart. And the teacher thought it looked like one of the black boys and her student and called the principal and said, that's him. They called the police and the police called the parent and said, we're coming to arrest your child. Now that was
on cross-racial identification.
Now that was a complaint that came to the NACP.
Right.
Right? When we went into the meeting, did y'all even check the cameras? The child was in school.
Oh my goodness.
But you're ready to arrest him.
You know
He
what?
was 17.
That particular teacher should not be teaching him. You know,
Yeah.
because if she saw that and acted in that way, didn't even talk to him, didn't even talk to the
Well, the principal
parent.
at the time was wrong too because they didn't
Right.
check the camera.
Mm.
They gave the green light to call the police. They didn't check the camera. They didn't interview anybody. They just went off the assumption. That shows there was a lack of policy. There was some microaggressions, covert, overt biases,
Right.
some culture things that were missing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
like there's a whole couple of steps you missed.
I mean, that's that cross-racial identification. It's like when everybody looks alike, you know, just even if the hairstyle is a little similar, doesn't mean that that's that person or looks like that person. But yes.
So often we want
Mm-hmm.
to move
Mm.
for a better school, and I get that, but you still got to fight wherever you're going.
Oh,
So one of the
absolutely.
things you got to fight for if you're attending a suburban school and you're a black or brown person,
Mm-hmm.
they're not telling your kids that the PSAT is mandated in 11th grade.
Mm.
The PSAT is the pre-SAT. The NMQST, that's the National Merit-Based Qualifying Test. That's how your child gets in the bank for schools to recruit them for academics. So if you have a student or a child who has a great GPA above a 3.0 and took all these rigorous courses and they don't take that PSAT as an 11th grader, you're missing out. You got these schools who are not telling our black and brown children to take the SAT. Why? Because they think if the black and brown children take the SAT, their SAT scores for the school go down and it's going to have a bad look on the school.
Oh my
In the
goodness.
meantime, you have people
Instead
telling,
of just preparing them educationally.
right, and you have people saying, well, you don't need the SAT to get into college. Miss Smith, you don't. However, you're not getting the merit-based academic money. So yeah, you can get accepted based on your grades.
You said Miss Smith. Did you just call somebody
No,
out?
no, no, no.
Oh.
No, you can get accepted on, I
Oh,
said
you
it's a
said a
myth.
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 Oh, a myth.
You're not
Okay.
getting the academic money.
Right. Okay.
So you can get accepted,
Mm-hmm.
but now you're not getting in the honor society, or
Right.
you're not getting, instead of, you might get 20,000 at merit base, but if you would have taken that SAT,
Right.
now you could have gotten a full tuition, full room and board, full meal plan, but you didn't take it because no one
Right.
told you to.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And those are the inequities because we don't get all the information, as you said.
Right.
And you know, when the slots may be minimal, you know, maybe say there's 10 slots and they want to make sure their favorite get those 10 slots, that's why we don't get the information.
But even going further, some of these other inequities that are happening,
Mm-hmm.
and you can go right on and look at the data. I can send the links to you later. The gifted population,
Right.
every district is supposed to do what's called a child find. So we're testing our kids out of the kazooble, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know who's getting advanced and proficient. You're supposed to look at that
Right.
and say, maybe we need to encourage them, right?
Right.
Our black and brown children aren't getting identified as gifted.
Mm.
There's 4 public high schools out here who has less than 3% black and brown gifted kids.
Well, what are the metrics? What identifies them or qualifies them to be identified as gifted?
If my GPA is above a 3.9 and I'm taking advanced and honors and rigorous courses, some teacher should say, because teachers were required to look at the data, or a data person should say, hey, let's try and identify who we might want to invite
Right.
or who we need to maybe look at. Are we really challenging them?
Right.
Too often we look at behaviors and say, well, that's a bad child. They can't be gifted, but that bad child is gifted, and that's what are acting out because
And
they're
they be
bored.
bored. Exactly.
Bored out their mind.
Absolutely.
And so you really
Absolutely.
gotta, the child find is there. There's there's the inequity where our children aren't getting access to be invited to take dual enrollment courses at some of these public schools.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
have
High
parents,
school, college, dual enrollment.
right? I have
Right.
to have parents fight and ask, why didn't you offer that to my child? Right? So, but at York City,
Right.
they have more AP advanced placement classes than 5 of the high schools in the county.
Yeah, and they have the relationship with your college.
Not just York College. Kids right now at York High can take 18 dual enrollment credits for free. All these other districts, the parents got to pay.
So who else? Your college and what other?
Hack,
Okay.
18 dual enrollment credits
Right.
you can come out of high school with for free.
Right. So right, it's not just oh, it's a public school or William Penn Junior High School. It's what you avail yourself. You
But you
know.
avail yourself too.
Now this is the thing, because it's it's access to information.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a child whose parent is struggling to make it, so they're working, they're not home much. They may not have time to go to the parent teachers meetings or check homework, or so how does that particular student get access to all this information? And they could be a good student,
Mm-hmm.
but they just, how does that person whose parent cannot delve into all the information get access?
So two ways we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
With NACP, we're trying to post this information on the state conference website.
Okay.
So we're sharing that publicly.
Mm-hmm.
The other way, with my company, what we do with York City is like this is the first year where our numbers are low.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going door to door. We're calling
Okay.
parents.
All right.
I'm calling teachers who I know work there.
Mm-hmm.
Send me some kids.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? So and so didn't show up. I'm
Right.
calling coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I'm calling aunties, grandmoms,
Right.
whoever I taught before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get on all your family nerves
Here's
until
a
someone tells me
here's an
you're not going to
available
college.
program.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Right. You want to tell me.
Right.
No, because I'm gonna call your whole family.
Right. Okay.
Because if you want it, there's no
Yes.
excuses.
Yes. That's it right there. But see, that's the thing. It's like sometimes you have to have exposure to want something. You have to see something to want it, to have that vision of it. So that's the question of with these kids that, right now, all what they see, it may be the violence in the home, the violence in the community, where they're trying to take care of their siblings, and while still getting in the door of the high school or middle school. How do we get that division to want it, division to see it?
What we do is we use our alumni.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been doing our program for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
We don't just get them into college. We stay with our kids and we follow them.
Okay.
We've been successful in following 70%.
Mm-hmm.
And the other percent, because we make community connections, because it's a whole team thing.
Mm-hmm.
If someone dropped out or they came back home, I always get a call saying, "Do you know your boy's back home? What happened?
Mm-hmm.
He needs a job. Well, let's get him hooked up over here at this company to get a job.
Right.
You want to be sustainable. You're not out here in these streets."
Mm-hmm.
How we do that is those kids come back and they talk to their peers.
Mm-hmm.
When they come home for break, they'll come in here, and it just happens organically. I don't say anything.
Right.
They sit down and talk.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, your Kai's football program just ended their last season.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of other young guys who played football or in college called and talked to me. Miss, what's so and so doing? They're checking on their teammates.
Right.
I was like, he doesn't show up. What you mean he don't show up? I done tried 5 times. You
Right.
got me? Oh, I got you. I'm
Right.
like, be nice. Don't cuss nobody out
Right.
now. So,
Right.
they tag your it.
Right.
It's
Right.
about, we teach the concept, I am because of you.
Right.
So in our culture, we help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You got there, but it's your responsibility to bring somebody
Oh,
with you.
absolutely. Absolutely. You didn't get there on your own.
Exactly.
Somebody's shoulders.
And so now it's your turn. And
Absolutely.
so we use that process.
Mm-hmm.
They are these York High alumni. They are everywhere. They're at Clark Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina A&T, North Carolina Central, HBCUs, Bowie,
Right.
non-HBCUs. But they come back and they encourage
Mm-hmm.
and empower.
Mm-hmm. So I thought you was also talking about SRW alumni.
Yes.
Okay, so you're a high in SRW alumni.
We work together.
Right. Okay.
Yes, we work together.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just, even when, if they want to go on a college tour, we'll call one of the students, where you going? Oh, we're going to go visit Towson. Okay, so-and-so's down there. Let me call him and see, can he take you on a personal tour? So it's about that.
Right.
And then connections, like, Cheney University is the first HBCU. Yes, Lincoln was the first degree granting, but do the numbers, look at the years. Cheney was the first. And so our superintendent, Dr. Andrea Berry, graduated from Cheney.
Mm-hmm.
And so when students are interested in Cheney and they have a good GPA,
Right.
she advocates for our kids. She calls the admissions office. This is one of my babies.
Right.
I'm an alumni. Where's the application at? Did you offer them the presidential scholarship because they have this GPA? She's on it. And she checks up on them when she goes up there. Same for our colleagues A lot of teachers came from Cheney or Lincoln or down south. They check in on those kids. Our teachers are great teachers. They care and go above and beyond. And so when people put negative things out there,
Right.
like the data, like where teachers are just sitting on their fingers eating bonbons, that's the biggest false statement ever.
Right.
And it's insulting.
Right.
Our teachers are doing more with less. And you brought up before, how do we focus on recruiting diverse teachers? York High recently brought back 4 former football players who are teachers.
So they were former football players, professional football players?
No, in the high school.
Oh, in
For
the
the
high
high
schools,
school.
but
And
now
they
they're
went and played
teachers.
football in college.
Okay.
And now they're back in the building
As teachers.
as 3 as teachers and 1 as a counselor.
Okay. And they would be known by the students because of their
Notoriety.
past. Right, exactly. So, right. And then when you were speaking about the alumni and having connections to them, that's the other reason why the DEIA is so important. That's why we have to have more people in all of these areas that look like us and who had experiences like us, because then you can relate to that student, because that same thing I was saying of how can we encourage and motivate a student who right now they're looking at their mom trying to put dinner on the table. So if they had a teacher that they could go to and trust and that can relate, I mean, then that's also another way they can excel.
It is.
Yeah.
There's been so many New York City teachers who have play adopted students,
Right.
and partner with those parents who are
Right.
need extra help, because that's just what we do.
Right.
But there's so many other options. We talk about we want to encourage folks to be teachers, right? That starts with respecting teachers. Why would anybody want to take up a profession where they see the teachers are constantly disrespected
And not paid.
and not
So
paid?
not paid, where you can't really satisfy your student loans and your everyday bills, and then to be under disrespect from students and administrators.
And parents.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And the community.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So you got to be careful with your words and what you say. Because, when COVID hit, there were a whole bunch of parents who did not want to be the kids' teachers.
Oh yeah, they did say a lot
Y'all
of people
wanted to
said
send them
that.
kids back.
Right.
But
Like,
now you're
what? This
still
what you had to
bashing
go
teachers.
through?
You have to stop that.
Right, exactly.
Teachers should be as valued when someone says, "Oh, I'm a doctor.
Right. Oh, yes. Yeah.
I'm an educator." Oh, they should be
Right.
as valued, right? And so
Absolutely.
PSEA has legislation out there to make the minimum teacher starting salary at $60,000.
Okay.
That's bearable, right?
Right.
But it would go up in increments. That should be.
Right.
Other areas we had a great conference this past weekend. Reading superintendent was there, and they have their own GROW program where they actually had a grant where they paid their high school students to and train them how to teach kids to read, the art of science of reading, phonics, phonemic awareness, and those students got trained and got paid to go down to the elementary school
Right.
and work with the kids who had the biggest gap. They found a love for teaching.
Okay.
Those kids then said, "Hey, I think I might like this." They started taking dual enrollment courses. Reading School District has the understanding, if you go off to college and major in education, you come back here and do your student teaching. You're homegrown.
Right.
Teachers Plus, which is a volunteer organization that advocates for the rights of teachers and students, was instrumental with PSEA, Pennsylvania School Association, in getting legislation passed so that now student teachers can earn a $5,000 stipend.
$5,000 a year.
$3,000 for student teaching, but if you choose to student teach in an urban or rural program, it's $5,000.
Okay.
And the teacher overseeing you gets $3,000. So
incentive to also, mentor another potential teacher.
And so then the icing on the cake that the superintendent did in Reading, and I asked him for the blueprint to share on the website also, is once they graduate from college with their teaching degree, they can come back, they're guaranteed a job with the district at step 2.
What does that mean, step two?
Step two means they're coming out of
higher
college
pay.
making a higher pay.
Okay.
Guaranteed job before you even graduate, higher
Right.
pay.
Wow.
You got your position.
Right.
That's how you grow your own.
Absolutely.
And so those are some things that as a state we're trying to do to recruit our own and grow our own but we got to start respecting teachers. We have to start respecting their position. And that respect comes from all over, not just the parents,
Right.
but also as a former administrator,
School boards.
school boards. I loved my teachers. I didn't retire because of my teachers.
Right.
Uh, you got to respect your teachers.
Right.
They're experts. You
Right.
go in and help them, but it can't be so much of aha, I got you.
Right.
It has to be more of, okay, let me help you. Let's teach together.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You're modeling. That's how you start building back up that profession. We are one of the most disrespected professions out there, and it is very stressful.
Right.
But most teachers go teach because they love teaching young people. They could be doing a plethora of other things,
Right.
but they still chose to be there.
Right. They wanted to make a difference.
Right. And if we want to keep homegrown teachers, if we want to keep good teachers, we have to respect them. And that starts with respecting the profession, respecting the building they teach in, making sure the buildings are adequate when we vote, making sure that we're not voting for things like vouchers, which would take away their jobs, right?
The union busting.
Yeah.
So you did mention some things of the inequities. What else in the various experiences that you've had have you identified in inequities between the urban and the rural schools?
It's mostly with the information. Information is on a need to know basis and often is not accessible. So it's again access to, hey, take the SAT. You can look at the data, it's public data. I'm not making the numbers up.
Right.
PSAT, they're not invited to take it. Not access to dual enrollment courses, advanced placement courses, not identified as gifted.
Right.
Just a lack of opportunity. National Honor Society.
Right.
Go do your own survey. Call your high school. Ask how many black boys are in the National Honor Society. I guarantee you, with the exception to one high school, I guarantee you there will not be more than 2 black boys in that National Honor Society. Guarantee you.
So are you able to share, I don't know, again, what are the requirements to get into that?
Each high school's National Honor Society requirements differ. Some say 3.5 GPA or higher, community service, letters of recommendation. Others say 3.9 or 3.8 or higher. So we recently had a situation, and I'm not going to call out the school, but there's an African American young man,
Right.
senior, well loved by everybody, respected, GPA 3.7 rounding up.
Okay.
Has taken AP classes. He takes chemistry, physics, statistics, and pre-calc for fun.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said. Your senior year, who does that,
Right.
right?
Wow.
He was rejected from the National Honor Society twice
Oh wow.
until we were having a conversation, because when you do your resume, being on the National Honor Society when you're going to college is the trigger for the admissions director to send you an invite to join their honor society.
Okay.
And if you join the honor club in college, that's more money. That's best dorms.
Right.
You're picking your classes first.
Okay. Yes.
It's
incentives.
Incentives.
Yes.
Money.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So why were you rejected? Did you write a horrible essay?
Okay.
So he showed me the essay. I'm like, that essay's not bad. So I called up somebody who was like, yeah, I think you might have some biases going on here. You might want to check that out. They checked it out. Well, he got accepted this year.
Oh.
Um,
And yeah, that's exactly why there needs to be somebody to help students and parents advocate, for themselves. So definitely, so thank you for what you're doing in that. And I hope anybody who's watching who has a student or relative or friend and keep wondering why they can't get ahead in their college or high school, then you may want to look into it or look for an advocate as well.
Yeah.
So I wanted to also ask you in reference to some curriculum. Um, there's challenges in high schools, and we talk about the school boards, and we talked earlier about the history and where people don't even know who Thurgood Marshall is.
Yeah.
So, how can we help improve the quality curriculum as well? And does money help with that?
I'm not sure what you mean by money.
Money into the budget that goes to the school. So giving more money, those reparations that you were speaking about, giving more money to these school districts. Can that or does that help at all with getting a better quality curriculum?
No. So the state has a framework where there's these standards that we're supposed to teach, right? Because it's connected to the test. But when it
Right.
comes to um, multicultural curriculum, that's each district's choice. So there was a student who was an alumni, uh, Sanaya Dowry, Mike Dowry's daughter, who was a stellar student, right? Like she was in college her senior year taking dual enrollment courses. She only stayed because she went to play basketball. So when she just went to college, she's now a senior. She just went to college last year
Right. So, she first year in college, but she qualifies as a senior.
because she had a
Had the
plan.
dual
She
enrollment,
had the
right?
dual enrollment credits
Okay.
that she started as a junior. She took classes over the summer. She's going to do an internship in New York, London, California.
Right.
But she wrote a petition for
Okay.
York Suburban
Okay.
to implement an African American history class. She went in front of the board.
Right.
It was accepted unanimously.
Right.
York Suburban has a full year African American history course.
Okay. Okay.
Um, there's, I think I just heard Redline or Hanover. One of them has an African American history course also. So it's really up to the students petitioning and the parents saying, hey, we want this course.
Now, is that in reference to or answer to making sure that Black history or African American history is taught? But what about improving the curriculum in general? Does the curriculum or quality of curriculum have to do with these test scores and whether or not more children have IEPs?
Curriculum is so the state says these are the standards that has to be, and this is when you write your curriculum, you have to make sure you're hitting these standards statewide.
Right.
So you really don't have that wiggle room.
Okay.
They have the choice of what books they're purchasing or what program they're purchasing.
Right.
When it comes to secondary, most of you may have history books, but teachers may pick and choose. And most of your books nowadays are digital. And
Right.
so it's constantly updating. But the boards have to approve what books you're using.
Right. Of course, that's we go back to the school boards.
Right. And then
Yeah.
that's the other piece that kind of those that um, sideways into the educator.
Right.
Because now the educator has to teach crazy things if the board says
Right.
they can't teach this, right? Or shut their door and hope they don't get in trouble. So more money doesn't impact curriculum. Curriculum should be evaluated every 5 years, and it has to be aligned to the standards. Whether or not you have specific courses is up to the board to decide, or someone to petition a teacher or a student to say a community group, hey, we want to teach this here.
Okay. Again, as you looked at the budget and the money that came into the school districts from uh 2024 budget, had you seen any money or uh programs for mental health, students in mental
There's
health?
money in the budget that was supposed to go towards mental health.
Right.
You have a lot of districts who are out here implementing restorative justice programs. A restorative justice program is basically about teaching our children how to communicate. A
Right.
lot of times when you're dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder or tumultuous or childhood trauma, we first thing you do as a human is you numb your emotions And when you numb your emotions, your inability to communicate what you're feeling and why something upsets you is impaired. That
Right.
creates conflict and
Right.
disorder and behavior challenges in a school setting. And so you have districts implementing these programs using some of that money.
Mm-hmm.
So York City School District partners with the Positive Impact Model from Baltimore, Bishop Stanfield, which has been very effective. They've worked in Baltimore City, Chester Upland, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia, been acknowledged and recognized by former President Barack Obama for having this great program. You have other districts like Susquehanna, Red Lion, oh my gosh, I forget the other school where Tavon's Parker program was in because
Mm-hmm.
he worked with middle
That's the
school,
Advantage
the
program.
Advantage program,
Right.
but he has a curriculum
Right.
changing the narrative.
Okay.
And he created a whole teacher, our company helped him
Mm-hmm.
create a whole teacher training model
Right.
where he's now training teachers
Okay.
how to understand the culture and climate of the kid
Mm-hmm.
and change their narrative
Right.
and be more compassionate.
Right.
So that's where some of that mental health money goes.
Mm-hmm.
You have, I think William Penn is the only school district that has social workers, school counselors, school psychiatrists,
Mm-hmm.
wraparound people.
Right.
So, like, if a student comes in and says, "Hey, my mom's getting ready to get evicted,"
Mm-hmm.
those social workers go jump. They get
Right.
in their cars, they
Mm-hmm.
go to the houses,
Mm-hmm.
they know what resources to call
Right.
to help that parent keep their light bill on,
Okay.
stop the eviction, get the food in. They do it all because how can you expect me to focus on history
Right.
if
Learn.
I left the house and there was a pink note on my door? A pink
Right.
note means you're about to get evicted or
Right.
your lights got cut off. For
Right.
those who don't know, you've been
Right.
fortunate. So,
Right.
okay. So, how would you expect me to focus?
Right.
I'm going home and my fridge may be
Mm-hmm.
off.
Mm. Right.
So, but
Exactly.
our social workers are awesome in doing that. They recently also started, and not just there, but that money helped start these programs. So, like grief counseling,
Mm-hmm.
um, it paid for some of the teachers to get certified in trauma informed instruction, but also grief counseling. And so, there's this healing,
Mm-hmm.
there's this place where they can now heal
Right.
and really communicate because it's all about owning your emotions and being
Right.
able to communicate. And I think that's what's really happening, unfortunately, with this election, where you have, we heard at the debate where so many people were talking about these culture wars, right? Made up, intentional,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to call it. We have to learn how to get along and agree to disagree
Right.
respectfully
Mm-hmm.
without wanting to create this tone of violence.
Right.
There's no need for that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the derogatory comments that are made about Vice President Harris,
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous. It's really showing where people's mentality really is. And it's kind of scary.
Well, that's why I think again, she chose the theme of joy to combat the theme of hate. So, and that's right. I mean, even going with the immigrants and they're eating the cats and they're eating the
Well,
dogs,
no, the one
it's just
last, did
the
you see the one yesterday?
I did. I saw a little bit. I saw the comedian talking about Puerto Rico and that's the island of trash. I understand that Trump made some statements, but I didn't see it yet. I don't know what's going on with us as a black community that we will continually hear that, we will continually see that, and either say, one, I'm undecided, or two, I'm still going to vote. So I really, I know we're sort of off track of education, but at the same time, I
No, this is
really,
education because it's
yeah,
about self awareness
yeah,
and self love.
yeah, well,
And what I'm saying
absolutely
is
self,
exposure of that
yeah,
self hate. And when we talk about mental
yes,
health,
yes, yes,
that
yes,
concerns me.
yeah, yeah,
Some of you
yeah,
are allowing your pain
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and your mental health
yeah,
challenges are fully on exposure.
right,
And when you say, it's one thing to have a preference. Everybody has a
right,
preference, right? But when you use derogatory words
yeah,
to describe a black woman,
right.
that says a lot about where your mind is,
Right.
right?
And then what I noticed on social media is they were, and I'm talking about the black, and honestly, I see it on social media with white people, but that's not my concern.
Right.
My real concern is seeing black and brown men and women that I know, and I see your post demeaning and downing a black woman, and I don't like all of this other stuff that we hear that happen at Trump's rallies. They don't speak anything negative, nothing negative. So it's not even equal. You know, so you're making a point to degrade a black woman, making a point of it.
And when we talk about education, right, and curriculum, now another bill that Carol Holt Evans did put out,
Right.
is the importance of teaching civics. So all of you asking, what has Vice President
Right.
Harris done? Y'all.
Yes, as a vice
hold on.
president.
Khan Academy, they got free history lessons.
Yes.
What? The vice president's role is not to run the country.
It's to support the
It's
president.
to support the president. So
Right.
why are we asking this question? What has she done? And you have never asked, what did the other vice presidents do?
Right.
Stop it.
That's exactly
Stop
my
it.
point.
Stop it.
And you know, a lot of the other thing that I really believe and see, and I haven't looked it up, and that's the thing, you can look up somebody's voting record. But a lot of the time, the vocal people don't even vote, but they're spending their time in
Platform.
their platform,
cause
their
the spread.
publicity, because they're known in the community to just say negative things, and they ain't even thinking about going to vote themselves. They wouldn't have voted no matter what. But again, they weren't going to vote anyway, but they're going to use their time, their energy, their effort, their platform to tear down a black woman. And that's what gets me.
And then we
more
talk about
than anything.
education again, right?
Yes.
So there's another bill called Art and Science of Reading, because reading scores are low because we don't have a policy that says all districts need to teach the science of reading. They were teaching this thing called whole reading, trying to get people to memorize, right?
Right.
So where am I going with this reading piece, right? We don't read. There's an old saying that said you want to hide something from a black person, put it in a book. So now you have Project
2025, that's
out
right.
there, but because there's so many pages, people don't want to read.
But there's summaries of it.
There are summaries.
Yeah.
There are abridged versions.
Yes.
Y'all, just read. If you actually read what was going on, what the plan is, you would vote in 9 days.
Yes.
So I made a post today laughing because you and my good other friend keep pushing me in the political arena. And I'm like, I didn't sign up for this.
Right.
Because my face is always going to say what it says. I've learned how to temper my mouth, but my eyes and my face still says it.
Our face talks as well.
And so the thing is, right?
Right.
We got to vote.
Yeah.
If you read what was in Project 2025, I'm a grandmama. You're a grandma. Nah.
Yeah. I mean,
you have grandchildren, you have children,
Yes.
you have nieces and nephews. I think about my great great granddad J.W. Washington, who purchased the land where he was a slave on, and it's still in our name. I think about my great granddad Jackson Wiggins, who went with Elizabeth and helped her start and raise money to start Voorhees College in Denmark, South Carolina at HBCU.
Right.
I think about my grandmother's 32 siblings who weren't afforded the opportunity to go to college. But then I think about my granddad Nathaniel Washington's sister who graduated with a degree in teaching from Oberlin College, because Oberlin was one of the only colleges that would allow black people to go to college and get a degree. They did all this, but yet they still had to fight to vote.
Right.
I think about my granddad wasn't very literate, but he made sure he voted.
Right.
He sat us down or pulled in one of his grandkids to read what was going on and made sure we voted so that we could have a free public education that he didn't have access to because it was segregated.
Right.
But now we got these righteous and woke folk not thinking about your future or the sacrifices your ancestors made for you to be here to get a free public education.
Or for their children or grandchildren. So
to be able to vote. I think about the women who didn't read Project 2025 and didn't realize. I think about my mom, right? When they migrated from South Carolina back in 1960, and women couldn't own a checkbook until when? You couldn't have your own checkbook until when?
Right.
The 60s. You couldn't get a house in your name as a woman. So we got this Project 2025 that says, oh, we got to get permission to do a whole lot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is going to be interesting.
Yeah. So I had a thought today, and I wanted to just ask the community, if all you had to do to stop slavery was to vote, would you vote? That's all you had to do was vote, and you could stop slavery. You could stop enslavement. I think that's where we are right now.
Some of them want to be slaves. It's just like Harriet Tubman said, right?
Oh yeah,
You
that's
had
my.
some
I
folks.
normally quote
You had some folks who
Harriet
said,
Tubman as
you
well.
know, they didn't want to listen to a woman because she was a woman.
That's
She
right.
taking people to freedom, but
Not
you a
only not
woman.
only that she was a woman, but they also didn't want to lose the. They didn't want to leave the known. They didn't want to leave the comfort. You know what I mean? So you want me to go out in this wilderness to something I don't know? I know Massa beat me, but I still get this meal. I know what I'm gonna eat. You know what I mean? So people don't want to leave their comfort zone.
And she left them.
Yeah.
She said, I could have freed more people if they would have realized they were slaves. And
Mhm.
even though that happened way back then,
It's
the
still the
quote
same
still
mentality.
applies because you
It
have a
is.
slave plantation
Mm-hmm.
mentality. If you're sitting here thinking that Project 2025 is not going to impact you and you are a person of
Yes.
color, black or
Yes.
brown,
And if
and
you
if you
think
are a
Trump,
woman and you don't think
hmm
it's going to impact you, you are in
hmm
the same category. So
yeah,
we, she's, she could have freed more people if they would have
hmm
realized they were slaves,
hmm
not realizing that you were trapped
hmm
or you could be
hmm
exposed to a real plantation.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
hmm
It's concerning because you're voting for the other is you purposely and intentionally choosing
yeah.
not to have access to certain liberties
It's
and freedoms.
absolutely you are saying I don't need these liberties. That's what you're saying because you have some access and we're steadily every day fighting for more. I just talked about the Crown Act. So there's some basic things we're still fighting for. 20 Project 2025 is basically definitely saying that we're taking us all the way back, even probably 1920s and before that. And you're saying that's okay. You know what I mean? There's something, and I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is, but for putting somebody in their place, how dare you think you can rise above? So that I don't always like the crab mentality because the other thing about the crab mentality is they also all cluster together to lift each other up.
But here's the funny thing, right? Some of the folks on social media who are making these outlandish remarks for
Mm-hmm.
attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
The weird part is if someone were to say something derogatory to them on that blue app or whatever app you're using, they
Mm-hmm.
would be in an uprise.
Right.
But this man says that Puerto Rico is an island of trash.
Yep. And they
That
supported and they
that
clapped and
Caribbeans eat cats and dogs,
yeah.
and y'all
And
laugh at
Haitians.
that, and
Yeah.
you think it's funny,
Right.
like, and you're okay with that, but you would address the normal person for talking about
Oh,
you, but
absolutely.
you're okay with this being said publicly.
And me as
That
a
says a lot.
they
That's
would be calling
concerning.
me saying, "Hey, do you know what this person did?" And what they don't understand is you're not going to be able to argue discrimination so much in employment, in schools, education, like you were saying that you are an
Let's
advocate
talk about
against. Yeah.
the other part, the one part in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they started it already in Florida. We're getting rid of black student unions,
Right.
getting rid of um, black and brown letter organizations.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
they totally fired all the DEI staff
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so these things are important.
Yeah.
You can't address inadequacies at your work job when we get the complaints where this job was
Mm-hmm.
discriminating,
Right.
and I know they were discriminating against me because I'm a black man and I got evidence.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get on social media and say black what? You're voting
Mm-hmm.
for the other?
Mm.
How do you want us to fight for you to get your job because you felt discriminated, but you
Right.
voting for the other?
Right.
I'm
Who is
confused.
planning to discriminate, planning to diminish your rights. Even when we talk about criminal justice reform, when they're planning to get rid of the things like the George Floyd bill, they're planning to get rid of even qualified immunity for police and make it absolute immunity where you can barely even try to sue them. You can barely sue police now because of qualified immunity, but they're going to increase those hurdles of you being able to sue police for racial profiling and all those types of things, illegal stops and seizures, so searches and seizures. So,
And
um,
then people don't see the bigger picture, right? So gentrification. Our
mhm,
rent here in New York City is
mhm,
ridiculous.
Right.
Ridiculous.
Yes, and it's
And so,
not because of the Haitians. That was already started even before them.
yeah, way before them.
Yes.
Um, but it's ridiculous. And
Mm-hmm.
so it drives people out
Right.
of the city to the outskirts, right?
Mm-hmm. The city is the only Democratic hold. So they want to drive out the people who are more economically challenged, who are more Democratic, so that they can get rid of that only Democratic hold.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then they want to diminish the school. So
Yep.
there was a plan about 20 years ago, the Rust Report,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
where the plan
Remember the rest
was
report.
to make York City School District a trade school,
Mm-hmm.
and that the other high schools make it one big
Mm-hmm.
district. The other high schools were going to be the high schools where people go to get the right classes, the rigorous courses, so they could go to college.
Mm-hmm.
But our city school was going to be the trades, the factory,
Mm-hmm.
the minimal jobs training program. We're going to give you the basics so
Right.
you can make the basic wage. So I can put you in an expensive apartment
Mm-hmm.
and you can stay in a state of poverty forever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Governor Corbett really tried to take over York City School District to make it all charter, and we had to fight against that, and we kept that fight up. It was the only time in the nation that a government was coming in to take over a school district.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, we
And wanted to
kept.
privatize it. And you
Exactly.
and Clovis Scallon, who
And,
sat on the panel, and now he's working with PSEA as a UniServe.
and thankfully,
Um,
we were able to keep that up until Governor Wolf came in.
yeah,
Yes.
but so there's always been
Mm-hmm.
the attack, the outlandish fabrication of the
Mm-hmm.
data against York
Mm-hmm.
City was intentional
Right.
because there's a bigger picture. York City has value,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
and people
That's
see
right.
that value.
That's right.
And
And they
so
want to
they want to
control
move
it.
people out.
Yeah, they want
Why
to
y'all think they
control it.
putting so much money in that nasty behind Godor's Creek? I'm sorry.
Hey, go ahead, tell it.
I mean, come on. Look at the plans. The plans are beautiful, but
Mm-hmm.
we lived here our whole life.
Right,
Like
right,
now, y'all want to beautify that place?
right. Yeah,
Okay.
gentrification.
Gentrification. Look
Mm-hmm.
at the breaking of the grounds they just had last
Mm-hmm.
week. They're putting up another condo across from York Academy.
Mm-hmm.
That's intentional because they want certain students at York Academy.
Mm-hmm.
So build a condo so their kids can go right over here
Right, right.
into this school and not the city school. So let's it's about this voting is serious.
Mm-hmm.
You do not understand what is going on. If you
Right.
own property in York, hold on to that property
Yes.
because I know you're getting the letters and the
Yeah.
postcards every
Yeah,
day.
we'll buy your house,
Man, please
any
don't
house, any
do that.
condition.
Because if they
Yeah.
want it now, the value's going to be higher
Yeah, there's a
later.
reason. Absolutely, there's a reason. They can see where it's building to, and this is where I also say, and I want to bring people like Sherry Washington to talk to the community, because education is key. You know, just we are so bogged down on just making it, just trying to make a dollar out of 15 cents, that we're not paying attention. And the more they keep us bogged down to not paying attention, the more they take advantage of us. So we have to wake up. We have to wake up. And despite um,
Here's,
our current condition,
we have to pay attention.
we have to realize that we can make it better.
And you have to vote.
Yeah.
And here's why. We talk about education. I know I talked a lot about college, but I got to switch gears because
Mm-hmm.
I'm an entrepreneur, and my father and my uncle own the oldest African American
Right.
construction
Yes.
company in York. So hands-on working is real, and I support that wholeheartedly. Right? The
Mm-hmm.
trades are
Mm-hmm.
real. HVAC, automobile, mechanic repair, construction, electrician.
Mm-hmm.
If college isn't for you, go get one of those
Yeah.
trades. But here's the piece, and even not that, you have people like First
Mm-hmm.
Health
Mm-hmm.
who offered free training for any York High graduate to get certified as a ultrasound tech.
Mm.
But very few people took advantage of
Did they
it.
know?
We put it out there,
Okay.
but it's this whole mentality.
Yeah.
So
So
whether you
that's one of those things where I really do think it's like, but I don't know anybody who does it. So it may be that I can't see myself as an ultrasound tech because I don't know anybody who went to be that
Well, I
ultrasound
trust
tech.
me, I totally understand because
Yeah.
I did not go to school to be a teacher because I did not have a black teacher,
Right.
and it took my professor at Towson saying, "Honey, you're failing all your accounting courses."
Did you want to be an
No,
accountant?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
My dad sent me to college to be an accountant to help out with the business.
Oh,
I hated
okay.
numbers. Like
Right, right.
I was taking English classes just for fun because I love
Yes.
African American lit,
Right.
and and so and it was just one black male teacher, and I never had a
Mm-hmm.
teacher, so I took everything he taught,
Oh, okay.
right?
Okay.
And he ended up being my advisor, and he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Honey, you got all A's in my classes.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much in business. Why don't you switch your major to English?" I said, "Sir, and do what with that?"
Right.
He said, "Well, you could be a lawyer." I said, "No, my mouth is slick. I'd be held in contempt."
Well.
So then he said, "Well, be an English teacher." I said, "Sir, I
Right.
never saw a black teacher." He said, "Get your coat. We're going in town right
All
now."
right.
Got my coat. He took me to Baltimore City, where the whole district was black. Black superintendent,
Mm-hmm.
black assistant
Right.
superintendent,
Yes.
all black
You have
teachers.
to see it.
I was just like in awe.
Yes.
Like I thought I was a
Mm-hmm.
whole new world coming from New
Right.
York, right?
Right.
I came back to Towson, changed my major. Now the funny part is my dad didn't know I
Mm-hmm.
changed my major until graduation.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "This isn't the business department." You right. Change it to teaching. I gotta go get on stage.
Right.
But so that's how I got into teaching
Right.
because I did not because I didn't see it. And you're right about the sonogram.
Mm-hmm.
But we have so many people here. When Wellspan held up black doctors in white coats,
Mm-hmm.
there were over
Yes.
50 black doctors who worked there.
Yes. Yes. Right.
It was a beautiful
Were they
event.
local?
Yeah,
Okay.
they were all local.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
so wow, but they're here, right?
Right.
But we gotta reach out and really start as people building this network, especially with things coming on. But with the education piece and the knowledge, you have to get a career that's sustainable. And you have to either get a certificate, or
Mm-hmm.
trade or
Mm-hmm.
degree.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's so many things you can do. And then there's entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
YCEA is finally listening.
Mm-hmm.
Filipinos is
Mm-hmm.
thebomb.com
Mm-hmm.
and giving support out there like crazy to help you build your business and
Mm-hmm.
flourish.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to figure out a way to be economically sound.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we also say to young people, because we had to help them understand, is no, you don't increase your income by working more jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You increase your income by learning how to invest and save.
Mm-hmm.
Stop eating out all the time. Save your money. Figure out how to build your business, have a
Mm-hmm.
plan, get a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Do a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year plan. But wherever we're going, whatever this election is going to turn
Yeah.
out, you better have a plan.
Yeah.
And
We're
you
gonna have to
better
get a
learn how to
plan.
save your money and invest.
Yeah.
And you better listen. Y'all
Yeah.
like to watch social media? Do something positive. YouTube University is real.
Yes, absolutely. You can
TikTok
learn so
University is
much.
real. There's free
Yes.
classes all the time. But do something positive instead of
Mm-hmm.
out there bashing our vice president on
Yes.
social media because your mental health issues and your insecurities are on full exposure, and it's sad and it's concerning. And if you have a relative that is out there doing that, reach out to your relative. I have an uncle we blocked him. Like he tried to hit us up on WhatsApp. You're blocked there too, because he just spews foolishness.
Yeah.
You don't have to engage with foolishness.
Yeah.
There's a scripture that says, "Do not argue with the fool, because you
Yes.
may not know who the fool is."
Right.
We're not
Exactly.
telling you to argue with them,
Somebody looking on, they don't know which one is the fool.
but have those one-on-one and meaningful
Yes.
conversations with folks.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all just please vote. This is imperative. It's If you're not voting because she's a black woman and a black Asian woman, or because she's a woman,
Mm-hmm.
have go in prayer.
Yeah.
Have a conversation with yourself. It's real. And if you can't read the whole Project 2025, there are apps on the computer that
Mm-hmm.
it'll read to you. There's this
Mm-hmm.
app called Speechify. You can take a
Mm-hmm.
picture
Mm-hmm.
and it'll read to you,
Mm-hmm.
so you can listen to it like it's music. But there's a bridge PowerPoints also out there too,
Oh yeah,
and YouTube
yeah.
videos.
Yeah,
And they're
definitely.
only in
There's
2 minute
summaries.
segments, right?
Yes.
So you don't have to
Yes.
listen a whole 2 hours. But this isn't made up.
Mm-mm.
And the other scripture, "My people perish for lack of knowledge."
Yes, indeed.
You
That's
you
why we do this. Absolutely.
you better go get some knowledge.
Yes.
Knowledge is free
Yeah.
for now.
Ooh,
For now.
that's a point.
For now.
Yeah, because it won't be.
It won't be.
If he was to win and Project 2025 is implemented, which they want to do on day one, knowledge will not be available to us because I believe that the reason why they have been attacking education, the reason why they attacked higher education, make sure they no longer had to include affirmative action, DEIA, is to make sure that we don't have another President Obama.
Mm-hmm.
So
Hold on, I was going to say it. That's why they really did the whole affirmative action because President Obama went to where?
yeah, Harvard.
Harvard, and his wife went to where? Princeton. That's Princeton.
Oh, okay.
So
Then his wife went to Princeton.
So we hey,
That's right. And that's what
we
I'm
don't
saying.
want you
No,
here anymore. We're not going to ever
no.
create another Obama.
Yeah, no. So it's going
But hold
back.
on. But guess what? HBCUs have produced as many intelligent people as well also.
Absolutely.
Thurgood Marshall, Lincoln University,
Absolutely.
Dr. Martin Luther King, Morehouse University, Oprah Winfrey, Tennessee State University. I could go on and on
But
and
they're
on and
taking
on.
funding out of that
And that
too.
is the other piece that we have to fight.
And because of the fact that they are attacking anything DEIA, then that they're going to attack funding those HBCUs even more. So Sherry, so for a final thoughts, what is the future direction in education?
So here's the final thoughts. I'm not sure because this election is going to determine a whole lot.
Yeah, that's
But here's
true.
what I do know for
That's
sure.
true.
You know, Cheney University came about because they didn't want to allow us to go to college.
Right.
And so it started out as the Institution of Colored Youth. It was a teaching academy to train young people how to become good teachers. James E. Smallwood came to York, Pennsylvania, and used Small Memorial AME as the first building where black children were taught. He went back and got his colleagues who he graduated with. They came here and started a second school and taught. He worked with entrepreneurs.
Like when you say here, he was here.
York, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
York, Pennsylvania. His plaque is right there outside of William Penn Senior High School by the cafeteria because the building was right there. He went and worked with entrepreneurs. William Goodrich's son, who was also a teacher here in York. We taught our own.
Yes.
We taught our own. Regardless of what happens, we have to get back to the place of teaching our own.
Absolutely.
There's no reason why, as a college professor, I bring up names like Thurgood Marshall, Maya Angelou, the popular names.
Right.
And I'm still getting blank stares.
Right.
That's concerning. Last week, we were working with trying to bring Reverend Jesse Jackson here. One of my students came in early and overheard me. I was like, Miss, who's Jesse Jackson? Are you serious? He's like, yeah. I was like, I'm going to need you to Google on your phone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
To not know this is the man who stood on the balcony with Dr. King.
Right.
This is the first black man who really ran for president.
Right.
It's concerning. So, as a people, yes, it would be nice if school districts had African American curriculum, right? And taught it year long. But again, there's YouTube University, there's courses out there online. And as a family, that's where Big Mama came in and granddad and uncles on the porch. You told the stories and you told the history. And you learned the sacrifices your ancestors made for you to be here. So as to my elders, to the folks our age and older, stop talking at the young people and share your history.
Right.
Share the sacrifices and the stories that your grandparents told you so that your young people can be inspired and motivated to continue the fight. You owe that to your ancestors. You owe that to your ancestors. Hiding information, not sharing what happened is a travesty. I think about legends, not just like the James Smallwood who came here and started the school, but I think about legends like Mr. Smallwood.
Right.
Right? And as big as his family is.
Right.
I know he'd be appalled if he knew some of his family members weren't voting.
Oh.
After how much he fought for York City.
Right.
Lee Smallwood. Right? I think about Dorothy Sweeney,
Mm-hmm.
right? The first black woman on the school board.
Right.
I know she'd be appalled
Right.
if her offsprings weren't voting.
Right.
Sometimes I wish the ancestors would come back and haunt some of y'all, but I'm not gonna go there today.
Smack them.
Okay? Like wake you up out your sleep.
Right.
Y'all gotta wake up, young people. Learn how to decipher. You're intelligent.
Yeah.
Use critical thinking skills to figure out what's what.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to believe us, but I truly believe that you're intelligent enough to know fact from fiction
Right.
and to honor your ancestors. Do that. You owe them that.
This has been SADOC with Sandra, Season 1, Episode 6 with Sherry Washington. And remember, your mind is a weapon. When you pursue education, aim for elevation, and channel your creativity into empowerment, then no door can hold you and no one can stop you. Your mouth is a weapon that can slay your doubts and insecurity. So speak life to yourself.
Need this nugget of encouragement. Things will be alright, so quit your worrying. I get it, the odds seem stacked back against the wall, but even considering such, know you'll stand tall. Sat and watch from the sidelines one too many times. Wicked games to play make me wanna lose my mind. Found solitude, knowing it'll be over soon. Ever need a boost, count on me for the 1-2. Trouble don't last when the tough get going. Baby, all we do is win, so show me my opponent. Adversity, doubt, stress, could care less, cause how we handle those like an S on our chest.